Good day, ladies and gents. My name is Hilso, the bearded Balkan blabbermouth, and happy new year. Yes, it's finally 2025 and we have a lot to look forward to. Hopefully all for the best, hopefully nothing of the rest, and hopefully every single one of you has an amazing year ahead. I truly believe that and I truly wish it for you. And to start 2025, I want to shed some light and some opinions on the ongoing roller coaster, in my opinion, that is CD Projekt Red and The Witcher 4. Now, I've talked about Witcher 4 in several of my videos and about CDPR as well, in some ways defending it, supporting it, and in other ways expressing my concerns that they might be onto a very bad path. Now, if you remember, Witcher 4 trailer came out a little while ago, and it was basically a bit of a mixed bag for a lot of people. Many people, including myself, liked it. Many people didn't like it for various reasons, one of them being Ciri as the main protagonist and her being an actual witcher who has undergone the trial of grasses and has undergone the mutations. And in my last video I actually said that CD Projekt Red might be going down a bad path because a lot of key personnel, key people that were involved in Witcher 3 have left throughout the last several years and have started their own gaming studios that are basically done in order for them to expand their creative potential, which to me was very weird because, as many of you know, when you're involved in video game production, you have at least a couple of years to develop the concept of a certain game before even announcing you're working on something to the public. So people who have worked for 17 years or for 15 years have been around for Witcher 3 and possibly the previous games as well to leave right as the new game is being brought into fruition, to me is very weird. But enough about that. As I said in the beginning, this is a roller coaster. And I think that a lot of viewpoints need to be very mid and cautiously optimistic and to not go into any sort of extreme points, and to always look at the facts. And this is what I want to do today. This is an article from That Park Place, and if you know me and if you know my channel, I do enjoy That Park Place, I do enjoy fandom polls, I do enjoy Smash JT's channel and website. I do enjoy all these YouTubers and content creators who post information independently and just leave it up to a discussion and updates from all sides. I do enjoy the inside sources and everything. So this is something that I truly enjoy reading because at almost all the times they're right on point. But this article kind of has me a little bit confused, but I will explain why. So the article starts with CDPR claims The Witcher 4 will tackle a woman's struggle in a medieval world. Now, the article title is a little bit vague, if I may say, and it kind of alludes to that it's going to be very focused on women and women's struggles without focusing on the story. That's at least what I see in this. And in the same time, it's not a wrong article title because it does say the truth, but we'll get that within the matter of context. The Witcher 4 directors claim that using Ciri as their main protagonist will allow the team to explore a specific struggle of a female monster hunter in the medieval world. But is medieval sexism something anyone was asking for in a fantasy RPG game heading into 2025? Now, within the world of The Witcher, you do have a lot of sexism and racism against other races. I mean, against elves, against changelings, against all manner of fantasy creatures, a lot of them intelligent. And this is within the book's lore, and this is very heavy on the lore actually at certain points. You also have it in the Witcher games. You basically have it as an entire plotline in Witcher 3A with the Church of Eternal Fire that actually burn mages, non-humans, and everyone. They also target witches, sorcerers, basically everyone who isn't a normal human. So you do have that as a plot line, and sexism and racism are part of it because you have we have seen in the games, and to those who have read the books, they know that women are basically exactly what was depicted in the medieval times, that they're not exactly at all times considered equal, to say the least. Ever since CD Projekt Red announced that Ciri would star in The Witcher 4, there have been questions and concerns raised. Yes, they have a lot of questions were raised. Some corners of the web erupted with outrage at yet another female protagonist replacing a beloved male hero. Now this is true, however, I have discussed this before, that for me, Ciri being the next Witcher is very logical in the terms of how the books progressed and how Witcher 3 ended. Others are asking thoughtful questions about lore and whether Ciri's abilities and background even fit the concept of being a Witcher at all. Now, being a Witcher and doing the tasks a Witcher does is one thing. The main question is can she really be a Witcher, like going through the mutations and all that? And I've discussed that as well, but we'll have to see how they explain it in the game, because we've heard a lot of promises from the game developers and from CDPR that they will be explaining all of that. But what's catching the most attention is how the developers at CD Projekt Red have seemingly confirmed they plan to use Ciri's storyline to explore sexism and gender politics in a medieval-inspired world of The Witcher. Now, I've read the entire article on Eurogamer, and gender politics were not something that was actually mentioned, because when you hear about gender politics, what is the first thing that you actually consider? To me, gender politics is what happened in Dragon Age Velgard, that plotline, what's been happening in Dustborn, in Concord, in all those failed games that just reek of activism. So this is not what was actually said in the interview. I know why that Park Place wrote it there, because at a certain point, and this is something I recently discussed with the 40k Empress on her stream regarding the new Spider-Man show, we are basically at something of a war in which we fight for to preserve the good type of entertainment in video games, in TV shows, in movies, and we fight to preserve what actually makes entertainment good and to drive out all gender politics, all DEI and woke agendas out of the industry, because they're unneeded, unnecessary, unnatural, and they're just not fit for gaming. Especially when it comes to established franchises, established lore, established TV shows and characters and storylines. It just doesn't have any place in it. Not to mention that when it actually infests an already developed franchise and just ruins it with these woke politics, like Dragon Age The Velgard was the absolute failure of the franchise, and I don't know if BioWare will recover the franchise after that absolutely massive flop. That's why everyone is currently on edge at all angles, including me sometimes, to dismiss anything that might be considered gender politics. So I did read the article at Eurogamer, and I have to say I didn't see anything that would imply gender politics. However, I realized that a lot of people can see that, and it doesn't mean that I'm right, they're not right, or other way around. It's just an opinion, and that's what we're seeing here. This is a viewpoint, and what I'm doing now is expressing my viewpoint on the matter. I do think that there is merit to what it was being said by that purpose, and a lot of it, because expanding on even the tiniest grain of information at a certain stage does lead to a lot of information that was actually hidden, and in a certain way it was brought to light, which basically opens a whole new can of worms. And this might just be that Park Place saying that they have seen gender politics within that interview. They might be right. It might just turn out to be that this will be infested in the whole game. However, this is not something I see, and that's why I'm commenting on it. Speaking to Eurogamer, game director Sebastian Kalemba, the narrative director Philip Weber, laid out how from the start they saw Ciri as more than a mere side character. Yes, Ciri is actually one of the main protagonists throughout the books. It is Geralt's story, but it's very, very closely tied to the development of Ciri from the books. They pointed out that while Geralt was already set in his way, Ciri, at the outset of The Witcher 4, is at the beginning of her journey as a Witcher. So yeah, basically we'll be handling a whole new Witcher from the beginning and making that Witcher our own version of a Witcher in any way we see fit. In a way, even though Ciri is of course a defined character, with her players will have the opportunity to still define her quite a bit more, Weber said. Specifically define the path that she will take on her way to becoming a Witcher, and basically also what kind of person that will make her. The conversation with Eurogamer then turned specifically to questions that centered around the idea of sexism in the world of The Witcher. Yes, that is something that has happened, and let's continue to bring the output task. This is one of the best questions, by the way. The experience of a woman is actively quite a significant theme in The Witcher in a lot of different forms. The women of this world are subjected to a lot of violence, they're heavily sexualized in different ways, there's kind of a deal with the devil that sources have to make it where they lose their fertility and so on. Watching the trailer, it seemed to maybe channel this. There's Ciri, a woman, trying and failing to save another woman from more of this universe violence, right? Is that an intentional theme that you were channeling with the trailer? And also, is it something you're intentionally looking to explore in the game? The experience of a woman in particular through Ciri's eyes in the world? This is a very complex question and a very, very dangerous one, because they are actually asking what exactly do they mean by the trailer and what exactly are they going to focus on in the game. And they're quite right. Women in the Witcher world, as I mentioned a bit earlier, have been very sexualized, have been very mistreated in certain ways, unless you count Skellige's women that are strong and very, very different than the continent's women. It basically is the world of The Witcher. It's a dark, grim, medieval world. If you read history books, you know that that's what's being trying to be emulated, especially in Europe. And Weber replies, I mean, I would say the world of The Witcher is a really dark one that's really inspired by, of course, dark fantasy folklore, exactly, but also medieval to early Renaissance history, and that is a world that was tough. Yes, it was tough for many different groups, women among them. Yes, that was absolutely true. If you know any history classes, that's very, very well documented. As an example, in The Witcher, we also deal with a lot of racism when it comes to non-humans, and this is something that we want to keep up with The Witcher 4. Exactly, Witcher 3 had the entire plotline with the Church of Eternal Fire. You have the Scoia'tael in Witcher 2, you have all of this in the games. I think it's something that has always been really important. We make games for adults, and it also means that we tackle some difficult topics. Exactly, that has always been the concept of The Witcher. We tackle them in interesting ways. We tackle them without giving easy answers, but often opening difficult questions that players have to answer. If you remember your playthroughs with The Witcher, you know exactly what he means, because you have a lot of difficult choices in that game to make up. Who to help, who to not help, how to proceed, what to do. Even when something seems very logical, it might actually be not the proper way to do it. And I'm talking about, let's say, defining how the ending will be, if you know what I mean. And I think some of those questions might be going in this direction as well, because yeah, Ciri is a woman, and as a Witcher in this world, this is an unusual state, exactly. So I don't think it's going to be this story everywhere. But since this is a part of this world and we want to tackle so many of those different themes, it's definitely also going to appear there as well. So it's not going to be everywhere. And that's something that actually gives me hope, because it all comes down to how you make it. You can't escape the fact that you're going to have a female Witcher. One, you cannot also escape that what's happening in the Witcher universe is exactly what Weber explained. There's a lot of sexism, a lot of racism, a lot of bad people doing very bad things to other groups of people. And three, you cannot escape that Ciri as a woman will probably experience some of those things, especially her being a Witcher, a female Witcher, which is an unusual thing. However, you also have that Weber says that it's not going to be everywhere, so the game is not going to be focused on that. According to him, it's also going to appear, but in a balanced way, if that's exactly what they do with what they're saying, and it's going to be inserted into the game as part of the natural state of the times that they're in, but it's not going to be something that sticks out and it's like an unnecessary patch. Basically, imagine Witcher 3 and Dragon Age the Velvet. Witcher 3 has a lot of these things that he's explaining that they're gonna be in the Witcher 4. Dragon Age Velvet has the gender ideology and it is crammed in there and it takes away from the gaming experience and it actually makes it very, very unpleasant, while The Witcher has it masterfully inserted into the lore, into the entire world building without taking away from your experience and without it feeling unnatural. That's the difference when you're inserting stuff like this in games. And if you remember 10-15 years ago, we had a lot of games that did have these things that we're currently very angry about, and we didn't care and we didn't mind because these things were inserted smartly and they were melded into the gameplay and the game experience itself. They didn't stick out, they weren't a thorn in the gaming experience, they were done smartly. I've said in my DEI video from a month and a half ago that DEI does have a sort of place in games, but only if done smartly and if done in a respectful way as it should have been from the start. And what we have now is an absolute abomination that should be eradicated from gaming and from entertainment. And the article continues. Does that mean that instead of simply showing how Ciri grows into her monster slaying role, CD Projekt Red feels it's important to weave in a storyline about gender politics? No, this is actually nothing that he said cater to that. Do most gamers really want that in their dark fantasy? Again, you had a lot of these things before. It's not something that you want or doesn't want. It's something that is part of the gaming experience and it fulfills a character, but only if done smartly, like they did with the previous Witcher games, like they have done with so many games before. They did it with Mass Effect in a lot of ways. They did it with so many other games, but that was before the industry was overrun by activists and when it was just gamers that were interested in providing you with amazing character development. And everything could be done great when it's done with a thought and with the absence of activism. The article continues. Recent AAA launches suggest that modern deism and overly feminist angles might be wearing thin on audience. It's not might. It's very, very visibly wearing thin. That's completely correct. Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age the Vanguard, Concord, and Dustborn have all been criticized for focusing too heavily on message-driven storytelling rather than compelling immersive gameplay. Exactly what I just said. You need immersive gameplay. You don't need to focus on the gender and the modern day stuff. Each of these games failed commercially, which is a trend that can be ignored. I agree. CDPR's approach may create headlines initially, but numbers could indicate that it often alienates core players seeking to lose themselves in a rich fantasy or where they can take a break from debating societal issues. Again, if it's done smartly, nobody would feel that, but only if it's done smartly. If they go in the route of Dragon Age the Vanguard, then Witcher 4 will be an absolute flop because people are already on edge. And exactly because they're on edge, this article was written in that way, and they do have a lot of good points in this article. Contrast that with the buzz around Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blaze, Space Marine 2, or Marvel Rivals games that simply promise fun escapism without underlying any modern political talking points. Those titles have benefited from a fanbase who live to get back to the essence of why most people play games in the first place, an engaging world with an entertaining story. Of course, yes, that's it. That's exactly what we want. The Witcher series has always prided itself on gritty realism and moral ambiguity. Yes, it has, but also a great escapism. The original game famously let you collect risque romance cards. The newest entries, especially The Witcher 3, tackle topics like racism towards non-humans and the harsh realities of medieval sex. Exactly. One could argue that sexism is simply another piece of the puzzle, and that if handled with a deft hand, it might enrich the narrative. Exactly. This is the part that basically explains the entire art. This, like what I said, The article was written because people are on edge, and because we're on edge, we have red flags that are flaming up, and whenever you see something that strays away even a little from what you view as a good gaming experience, even with what I consider a bit very safe actually interview that was conducted in Eurogamer, it may flare up your mind, and that's why this article exists. But this portion that I just read, this is exactly what I mean. If sexism can be a puzzle to explain the world that they're in, which is the Witcher world, and if it is handled as well as it is in the other games, it's gonna be amazing. It's not gonna detriment the game in any way. It's actually going to enrich it. But it's also easy to suspect that The Witcher 4's big talking point is less about telling a natural extension of Ciri's tale and more about ticking a modern box. Instead of letting the sexist elements of the world stand as background flavor, they risk turning it into the main course for the sake of being relevant. Once again, amazing section of the article. This is basically the other side. Witcher 4 is going on the edge of a very sharp knife, and it's not visible which way they will lean, because they can lean in both of these ways that I just read. And if it goes in the Dragon Age Velgard way and just lean into those things, those modern stuff that nobody wants, it's going to fail miserably. And I do hope that they realize that and don't go that way. Ideally, The Witcher 4 will follow through on this in a way that feels consistent with the dangerous monster-ridden environment rather than a lecture about how tough it is to be a woman. Yes, Ciri is potentially an interesting protagonist as a defined character who can still be shaped by player choice. Yes, Ciri is very, very well known and very well defined in and of herself, but she's still in the beginning of her journey. But it seems like a misstep to turn a dark medieval fantasy epic to yet another female empowerment storyline at a time when many gamers are clamoring for an escape from real-world culture wars. Now again, Ciri to me is the logical choice, because throughout the books you see her grow, expand her knowledge, you see her build her characters, you see her go through all phases, all sort of adventures way before the games were even a concept. And when you finally meet her in Witcher 3, you see her as grown up, you see her as per her stories that she has already been through countless more adventures, and then you see her as you play with her that she's very grown, she's very mature, she has already getting a handle on her powers, and you see her how OP she can be, especially towards the end of the game. And when she goes to battle the White Frost, you see her that she's already absolutely prepared to tackle everything that the world has thrown at her, and the world has thrown a lot of stuff at her previously. So it's not, to me, a female empowerment. It might potentially be a very well established female character that is not a girl boss, because she does have a lot of history and background behind her. CD Projekt Red certainly has its work cut out. If it executes Ciri's arc with the same nuance and care that made The Witcher 3 a success, all may be forgiven, of course. However, I fear that sexism, feminism, and social commentary will take role in this narrative is already stirring skepticism from a fanbase exhausted by messaging of modern AAA games. Yes, I'm one of the people who actually expressed these fears. For now, fans can only hope that the final product delivers on the immersive monster hunting escapism they fell in love with without forcing modern political narratives. After all, The Witcher 4 simply goes the route of gritty feminist commentary. Recent gaming history suggests that no amount of brand power will stop the player base from walking away. Yep, I completely agree. CDPR does need to be careful and does need to deliver on everything that it's saying. At the moment, what the developers are saying in interviews, if taken for granted, if taken as a clean coin, as we like to say in my country, is something that might sound very amazing as a gaming experience. On the other hand, we know what's happening in CDPR as a company. We know their DEI project, we know their classes, we know all this that is on their website. We know a lot of people have left that were connected on a very high level in Witcher 3 and in the other games. We know that they're making rival studios that are potentially going to battle to preserve only the purest and the best way of gaming. And at this point, it's very open to speculations what's going to happen and what Witcher 4 is going to be. As I mentioned, this is an absolute roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down, it stops in the middle, and you don't know exactly how the ride is going to go. I purely am cautiously optimistic still, even though I have said in the past that some stuff do make it seem that CD Projekt Red is in trouble, and I do believe that, but at the same time, I do want to believe that they will make a good game. That's why I'm being very on the middle on everything that's been happening, and I'm just observing and giving you my honest commentary and honest thoughts on everything that I read and everything that comes out. In the end, we'll know more when the gameplay trailer drops and when we see more and more information regarding the lore, the world building, and everything else. Until then, everything, unless some major leaks drop from an insider or from somewhere else, everything will be just the opinions and the observations that we just covered, because you might have a lot of people with different opinions, but I think that everyone actually wants for CD Projekt Red to succeed in this case and to provide us with an amazing experience just like they did with Witcher 3. I also know that gamers will be very cautious and will be very skeptical and will need to see a lot of things that they expect to see in order to open up their wallets and to basically support because Projekt Red with their games. Because currently, as I mentioned, we are in a fight to preserve and to show once and for all what we want in gaming and what we want in entertainment, and that we don't want unnecessary things, don't want narratives, and we won't stand for anything that disrupts our enjoyment, our escapism, and our good time when playing a game. And that is the fight we fight. And the fight, my dear friends, is good. Anyways, that's all I have for this video today. Thank you for watching so far. If you enjoyed my content, click the like and subscribe button, click the share button on this video to get me out there as much as you want. And if you want to support my channel directly, go and join one of my 3 tiers in the membership program on YouTube. And if you want to help support homeless animals and animals in shelters, please press the link down in the description below to my Patreon, where I gather money for that cause. 100% of the proceeds go to homeless animals and animals in shelters for veterinary care, food, shelter, and everything that we can provide with our capabilities. Thank you very much for watching. My name is, see you guys in the next video. Cheers and stay fresh.